Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Adult Chair on Rash Pixel FM. I am Michelle Chalfant.
I'm very excited because I feel like I have a very, very special guest today, you guys. This is, if anyone has seen my quote, and I even mentioned it in a previous podcast, soothing cannot be outsourced. How's that for a quote? Well, I have, is it an author of a quote? Is that what it'd be called? Okay. I have the author, the person that actually came up with that quote, and I've used it, I think, once a day in the last few weeks. So I am actually interviewing the person that came up with that quote. But first, I need to say that you can find more out about the show on theadultchair.com. You can subscribe for free by signing up for our mailing list and find us anywhere the finest podcasts are served with a quick search for The Adult Chair. I just want to say, because so many people don't know this, you guys, there are podcast apps on your phone. I have shown more people. In fact, when I did The Adult Chair in Delray Beach, people were like, how do we listen to your podcast on the phone? And I said, you have an app on your phone. It comes with the phone. So it's purple if you have an iPhone. I don't know what color it is on a Samsung phone, but go there, hit the search button, and then you can type in The Adult Chair and boom, it's right there on your phone. You can listen to it all the time. Or you can have it emailed. So if you go to my website, you can sign up for the mailing list, and then you can get it in your inbox once a week. Or you can join the conversation on Facebook or Instagram. I'm on Instagram. So here we go. Very, very excited. I would like to introduce, I'm just going to use her first name because this is actually a client of mine and she says I can use her first name. This is Susan, and she is the person that said soothing cannot be outsourced. I'm going to just say, I've heard a lot of good quotes. That is like one of my favorites. We're going to have to just call it the Adult Chair quote. I mean, it's like from Susan.
I think that's very fitting. Thanks for having me today, Michelle. I'm so excited to be here.
And I am thrilled that you decided to do this because so many people have asked me and talked to me about this quote. People from YouTube channel, people from Facebook have come in and said, I love that quote. That's like one of the best quotes. So I said, I'm having the girl on that said it. So here we go. So welcome, Susan. And thanks so much for being here.
I'm thrilled.
Yeah.
I can't wait to dive in.
Well, let's dive in then, girl.
Sounds good.
Okay. So I think what would be great if we could hear, let's set it up for everybody. Let's set up your childhood.
Okay.
And I say this to everybody. You know, we all have childhoods, and dysfunction is part of everyone's childhood.
Right.
Now, and it's all on a scale. You know, some people have, you know, and I hate hearing like horrific childhoods where there's tons of abuse.
Yes.
And then other people might have grown up and they just didn't hear I love you, or they didn't get a hug. So there's everything in between. So I think what I'd like to do is just share with you just a brief history, just kind of the highlights of Susan's history, the story of Susan's life. And I'm going to bring you all up to date with where she is today. All right. So Susan grew up in a 4-person home. She had a mom and a dad and a sister, and she had a mother that was not very nurturing, but she did have a father that was very nurturing, and she felt like her dad rescued her at night when he would get home from work. So she had a very loving and close relationship with her father. Around the age of 12, Susan started feeling that her father was distancing himself from her. It really confused her, and she thought she just kind of made up the story. Well, I guess it must be because I'm a preteen, and this is just my dad not knowing really what to do with a teenager. So, but it did send her the message that she was not worthy, really not worthy of his love anymore. And then she, of course, felt like her mom. She wasn't sure if her mom loved her, so she really had to, at that time of her life, make up a lot of stories or make sense of what was going on in her life. She really felt and formed the belief that she was unworthy of love. And she lacked confidence and lived with some confusion about what was going on. But it also, as we all know, became her norm of just kind of coming home from 12 through senior year of high school and having dinner with everybody, but not really getting a lot of input or engagement from her parents. So her mother never really engaged with her all that much, and her father felt very alienated from her dad. So it was a really lonely time for her as well. So this continued on for again until she graduated from high school, and just didn't feel the nurturing and guidance, didn't really have any mentors. Her basic needs were met, but there was not the emotional connection that she was really wanting and needing during those years. So she really had to navigate the teen years all by herself. And again, didn't realize how dysfunctional it was until much later on in life, but it became her norm. The blessing in all this is that around maybe 18 or 19 years old, Susan, I think you would say that, your father and you kind of came together again and formed a new relationship and reconciled, and you felt more support from him at that time. But unfortunately, he passed away when you were 21. So just 2.5 years after that. So it was a devastating time for you, and you felt like you had nobody. Again, Susan, you said that after your father died, you had a lot of resentment with your mom post your father's death because she wasn't available to you again, and your sister had moved away. So you actually felt really lonely, but did end up developing a relationship with your mom. And you realized that you and your mom had a relationship, but it was dysfunctional, but it worked. It was somebody there for you. And you also realized that you had a lot of feelings that kept bubbling up that had been suppressed for many, many years, and you weren't quite sure what to do with them. And you developed somewhat of a codependent relationship with your mom. You had a lot of shoulds. You felt like you should have a relationship with her. There was nobody else around. So you would call her all the time and talk with her every day. And then you started realizing, I don't know that this feels so great. But that happened a little bit later on. So you ended up getting married, and were married for 15, 16 years, and ended up getting a divorce. And that was part one of your awakening, it sounds like, is that in the middle of your marriage, or at some point toward the end, you realized, what am I doing? And you began to, what I would call, wake up and become more conscious of your life, of who you were in relationship with, if your marriage was working for you, who you were in your marriage, etc. So you ended up getting a divorce about 2.5 years ago, and began to date someone that it didn't last with, but it was a great learning experience for you. So I think at this point I will stop and let you continue with your story of soothing cannot be outsourced. This is your story. So I think that's pretty much a history for you.
You started seeing a therapist.
I was at the end of this relationship that I jumped into, and sometimes I want to say unfortunately, but not really so, because it's part of my story. And if I hadn't gone through that relationship, I honestly don't think even my divorce would have brought me to this point of growth. I needed all of these experiences.
Yeah.
And so with this person that I dated, we did couples therapy a few times, and then we officially broke up, and then I continued on with this therapist a few times and just realized it wasn't a good fit for me. And I remember an evening I was sitting out on my patio, and I don't remember what word I Googled, but I just Googled something, and up pops Michelle Chalfont's name and her website, and I couldn't get an email off to her fast enough saying, help, I need to come and see you. So that started my really extensive therapy process. That's probably been 14 months now, I think.
Yeah.
That I've been...
I would call it your inward journey.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
We started looking inside instead of fixing anything outside or healing anything outside. It's like, it's just about
going inside, we kind of walked that journey together and like, let's go find out what's on the inside.
Yes.
And
yes. And
so then we're going to fast forward then to, so I remember you telling me that your mom, you had another awakening, kind of like when it was time for your divorce, when you had that awareness.
Yes.
And it was an awakening around it. What I would call it is conscious, more, you were becoming more and more conscious, right? Which
Absolutely.
is, you were living more in your adult, you were finding more of that adult energy. And you came in and you said, I realize I unconsciously, talk to my mom every day and I tell her all this stuff and and I'm realizing it doesn't feel really good.
Yes.
Yes. So I think I'm going to stop that.
Yes. Yes. It's like this aha moment of, wait a minute. This relationship I have with my mom that I've had as an adult is not fulfilling and doesn't feel authentic. It doesn't feel
good.
Yeah. Right. It's just like, hello, this doesn't feel good.
Right. Why am I doing this?
Right.
So that's what happens when we bring consciousness into these relationships. And into ourselves, we start wondering, hold on.
Right.
Is what I'm doing, does it serve me? Is it in my highest good? Does it even feel good? We start assessing,
yes.
like, hold on.
Like, I have a choice. I have a say in my life.
Right.
And what happens. And even if it's a spouse or a parent or your child.
Or a friend or anybody. Yeah.
Anyone that we have a choice. And
always
have a choice.
Which is an adult chair term, having choices.
Yes. And I think how you respond, as I've learned, it's about responding and not reacting.
Good girl. A+.
Thank you. However, I decided I needed to exercise some boundaries with my mom.
Okay, this is where the story gets really good.
I know.
Susan was learning.
Hold on.
Yeah, she was learning all of this great adult chair stuff, and I'm going to set boundaries, and I'm going to let my mom know exactly how I have felt all this time and all these years, and I don't want her to come to every event with my kids, and I'm going to let her know how I feel. And I said, I don't know that that's the best idea. When we learn this, oftentimes, we do want to share with the whole world, or especially with people that might have hurt us. We want them to know. But what we tend to forget is that they're not where we are. They have not been doing their work. They have not been learning how to live in their adult. They're still the same people.
Right.
So when we talk to them, they don't even know what the hell's going on with it. They're like, what are you talking about? So this happened with Susan.
When you talk to them in a way that they're not used to, it's like a foreign language to them.
Which is what I shared with Susan. I said, it's kind of like you have a PhD in Russian and your mother has never taken Russian. You suddenly went out and you learned Russian and you speak it fluently and you're speaking Russian, and then you're getting upset with your mom that she does not know Russian yet. So Susan decided to still go ahead, because it is exciting, I have to say, when we learn this stuff. It's like, ooh, I want to go share and I want to let them know how I feel. I'm going to set this boundary. And we have to be really mindful with boundaries, because sometimes people can't handle the truth, just like the movie.
Right.
What movie was that with Tom Cruise?
Oh, goodness.
All Good Men? No.
A Few Good Men.
Woo! You can't handle the truth, right?
Yes.
So sometimes people cannot handle the truth. So we have to be cautious and aware of how we set those boundaries.
Right.
And if that person is ready or so anyway, so you did though decide to share a few things with your mom, and you would send her some emails, and decided to decided to set some boundaries with your mom.
Yes.
And your mom was thinking you're speaking Russian.
Yes. And I had already pulled back from her, so she was already aware.
And she was probably confused, if we have to be honest. I mean, you're starting to pull back and say, please don't come to this child function and this child function. And
yes. And mostly I think it was that I was pulling back and I was not sharing as much with her and wanting some space with her. And so, yes, then kind of the icing on the cake was when I asked her, she sent me a text asking specifically about an event for one of my kids. And I asked her to not come to the event. And looking back, the way she worded it was completely triggered me. And so I know my response was probably not straight from the adult chair. It was probably, I think I was
a little reactive.
A little reactive. Could have handled it differently. But anyhow, I did ask her not to come. And so she said she would not come. And I kind of wiped my hands of that and thought, okay, moving on. And thought, score one for me. And then I guess about a week or two later, I come in for a therapy session to Michelle. And she tells me she's got to talk to me about something at the end of our session. And Michelle informs me that a friend of mine has contacted her because my mom wants to stage an intervention for me.
Now, at the time, there was not laughter from Susan.
There was not.
It was a little shocking, of course. But looking back on it, that's how, quote unquote, crazy her mother had thought Susan had gotten.
Yes.
And it was because she had set boundaries. She was learning how to love herself and take care of herself and speak up for herself. And it was so foreign to her mom. She tried and wanted to stage an intervention to help her daughter come back. And she had made up all these stories, her mom, about Susan and what was really going on. And it was not accurate in the least bit. And now we sit and laugh about it. And it is quite humorous to think that it's over really setting boundaries.
Right. And to think that I know it was, like speaking Russian, and my mom couldn't understand. I do think because she hasn't done any work herself and she's just at a different place, she was defensive, of course. So I think it was a combination of thinking like, oh, something's really wrong with her. But also I do think it was there was a little bit of a vindictive tone to it, the way the whole thing, the timeline of it all.
And I can feel already the respect. I'm going to get emails on this one because people are going to ask me, then why should we learn how to set boundaries? And I'm just going to say to everybody, absolutely, yes, we set boundaries. However, in addition to setting boundaries, what you did was you had gone and said, and you hurt me as a child, and you went into there were further emails. So it wasn't just, hey, please don't come to my child's event. It was also emails that she had sent because she was really trying to take care of herself, much to my advice against it. I said, I don't think your mom's going to be able to understand what you're saying, right?
Yes.
But we get excited when we're healing, and we get excited when we're transforming, and we want to let other people how we feel, and we want to let others know how we're feeling. And again, we look back on this and say, I'm so glad it all happened.
Yes.
Right?
Yes. And in that moment, I will, like I said, admit that I was speaking from my adolescent chair half the time, that I was not far enough along, I think, in the process for me to really...
and I think there was a part of you that really wanted to let her know how you felt for all those years when she wasn't there for you as a child, when you were growing up. And there were no Saturday and Sunday dinners in high school. And what the hell is that? And there was a party that really wanted to share that with her. But the way that it was shared, she was not able to hear. Right. And you were excited because you were learning all this stuff. So, so there's a process, there's a way. And now
Yes.
You know.
And my mom has an image of my childhood that she wants to uphold for her own sanity and security, or
Right.
and so this was me shattering
Her image.
Yep. The mask that she had put on and created for decades. And so this was a big affront to her, to that whole side of things, for sure.
For sure. So, okay, so that happened. Thank God there was no intervention.
Right. Thankfully, I was made aware that this was going to happen. So
obviously, I'm going to lead up to the next key point now. So you were crushed. It was devastating, and there were lots and lots of tears, and it was not an easy time for you.
Yes.
And you went for a few months without speaking with your mom or your sister or your aunt or anyone that was involved in the intervention, really, right? The people that had set it up, right?
Yes.
So you'd gone for months and months and months, but then something was kind of in the back of your mind or in your heart saying, I just don't know. You used to come in and say, they haven't even reached out to me, and I don't know what to do. And do I reach out to her? And I say, and I say this to everybody, you'll feel moved.
Right.
It's not something that's going to come from the mind. It's something that's going to come from inside, what I call chin down, in the heart space. It's like, you'll feel moved, and you'll know when to reach out if it feels, and it'll feel right. And there did come a time where it did feel right. And you said, I don't even know what to say, or, it was
right.
But you knew, because you would come in and said, should I end this relationship? I said, this is not something I answer. This is something you will answer inside of you.
Right.
And you made the decision, or I think we decided together, like, hey, why don't you just go meet and just see what happens?
Right.
Just go meet. So you did. You reached out, and your mom did get back to you.
Yes.
And she agreed, and I think she was pretty happy about you reaching out.
Yes.
Right?
Yes. She was very, very happy.
Yeah.
And it took a couple of events, I guess, that were kind of the catalysts.
And she was on her best behavior, by the way, we have to add, when you did meet with her.
Sort of.
I mean, she was doing her best.
She was doing her best.
Yeah.
It was insightful into some of the behaviors from childhood, but I was able to sit in my adult chair and see.
High five.
Yes.
You did.
See my mom in her adolescent chair, to see my mom, and honestly, her voice even transformed at one point, and she was talking like an adolescent, like a almost like a little girl, and sharing some information with me, and was kind of defensive about something, but I was able to sit
and observe it.
And
you
observe,
witnessed.
yes, and observe, and she was sharing with me that basically she was jealous of the attention and affection that my dad had shown me when I was a younger child. So I was able to actually to sit and feel a little space of compassion for her in that moment, but it also offered me clarity and to know that it was not my fault it wasn't me, and to see how much how that affects her still to this day, that was not me for me to personalize. So I was able to.
And unfortunately, that's such a great point you just made, because as kids, we grow up and we look to both of our parents or caregivers or grandparents, whoever raises us, we look to them to mirror back to us that we are lovable. Yes. And we are acceptable and we are worthy and all of these things.
Yes.
And as little kids, we don't have the brain that we have now. We don't have adult brains in little kid bodies.
So little kids then rationalize and try to make sense of, why is mommy or daddy not treating me well? Or why are my caregivers being so mean to me? Like we don't understand that perhaps it's not us.
Right.
Perhaps it's their issue. But little kids, when we're growing up, we don't comprehend. Little kids, and I mean little kids into age, up to age 20. We can't comprehend that, gosh, you know what? Maybe it's their stuff that they're projecting on me. Mm-hmm. Maybe it's their stuff and their wounding that's in the way of them showing me that I'm lovable.
Right.
So what we do as kids is then we start believing them and their projection of themselves on us.
Right.
And that's what distorts us.
Yes.
So we've got to look at our parents. And I was working with someone today and I said, you know what? It's okay as an adult to look back at childhood and be upset about the way you were treated as a kid.
Yes.
God,
absolutely.
That wasn't okay with me. And that was not, whatever you want to say, whatever we need to say as adults, we need to look back and go, it wasn't my fault. How is a little kid not lovable? Like, how is that even possible?
Right.
What does a little kid ever do that makes them not lovable?
Right.
Right. But we interpret that we're not lovable because of our parents' crap that they put all over us. So
absolutely,
it's okay. And we need to straighten that out for our inner child, because the inner child's still walking around. I don't care how old we are, oftentimes with a very distorted understanding and image of who they are.
Yes, for sure. And with my parents, one of the biggest themes was I was just simply ignored. Yeah. And so I wasn't seen or heard. Yeah. And I kind of carried that forward. And I think in learning about the adult chair, and at this point when this event happened with my mom, I realized I was ready for the next level of the process. We had already done some of the child chair, or incorporating the child chair work.
Yeah, you had been bonding. I saw you posting in the close group. Your little date. You had your little dates at the park with little Susan. It was so cute.
Was right after your workshop.
Yes.
The level 1 workshop, which is fabulous. By the way, everyone needs to attend the next one. But
okay, so let's talk about you then. So after all this went down, it was around Christmas time, and I was out of town, and you were busy, and it was hard to connect around the holiday. So you were left to have some time alone and work through some of this independently.
Yes.
That's where the big quote was born.
Yes.
So why don't you talk to us about some of the key points that, so first of all, you bonded with your inner child. That was already in place. So you had been communicating and bonding with your inner child and kind of having some dialogues with her off and on.
I had off and on, but this event allowed me to even go deeper and really have a better understanding of when I'm triggered. When you realize something is off, usually that means, I'm being triggered right now. And to be able to have that awareness, and then for me, it's, okay, check in with little Susan, because the correlation there it's amazing how that checking in with little Susan and seeing what she needs and talking to her from my adult chair and like reparenting her and soothing her and validating her feelings and needs and reassuring her. It's like I finally connected the dots that this is how I'm going to heal.
Yeah.
This
wounded little girl inside of you, right?
And it's not something that happens overnight. It's a process. And we're talking about over 4 decades of
stuff you've carried around.
Stuffing it down. But so I realized when I get triggered, go to Little Susan, and it's amazing the peace and calmness that can come over you if you just devote 5 minutes.
That's the thing. It doesn't take long.
It doesn't. It doesn't take long. And I even find myself, I remember one day I was in the grocery store and it was packed on a Saturday and there were so many people there and I started to feel anxious. And instead of just being anxious and letting that build and then you feel overwhelmed, is I just, in the grocery store, as I'm pushing my cart.
You sound like me. I've done that.
I dropped in and I just started talking to Little Susan and the feeling just moved through me, and the peace that I felt was amazing. And
that's what people don't get. It's that fast.
It's
that simple.
It is.
It's honestly.
It is.
You know?
And I think within us, we have our inner child, but we also have, and for me, it's the Holy Spirit that's guiding us and is there for us like a compass. Like we can tap into it.
Yes.
So it's another tool.
It's a navigation.
Yes.
I say it's a navigation.
Yes. So
if people are listening, so bonding with the inner child, really, really powerful.
Yes.
Obviously,
yes.
I think that's the foundation. That's what we all, because when we bond with the inner child, we find out what we were feeling and what we're needing.
Yes.
So then, with your mom again, so over the holidays, things were getting a little hairy, but you were doing a lot more of this, the inner child bonding, and you had been doing some of it, of course.
Yes.
And then you found that when you were spending time with your mom, you were able to let things go.
Yes. So
that was one thing you came in, you're like, I don't know what happened, but she's not triggering me.
Yes.
What happened?
Yes. So,
right?
Sitting through the holidays and just relying on myself to work through a lot of these feelings. And, a lot of people struggle during the holidays. And so, but yes, I got to a place where we were going to meet my mom after Christmas to exchange gifts, and she wanted us to come to her house.
Yes.
And I found myself being triggered.
Yep.
And, thinking, I don't want it on her terms. It needs to be on my terms.
Yes.
And then I came in and talked to you, and we discussed just recognizing for her that was important for us to come to her house where she's had all of her decorations up. And
well, we moved just to back up. You're right, because you came in and you said she wants us to go to her house, blah blah blah. And I said, oh, isn't there adolescent chair? And
right.
It's okay.
Yeah.
And I said, so let's cut out the story and assumption, right?
Yes.
And the drama.
Yes.
And let's cut to the fact and truth. And the fact and truth was, so your mom wanted you to bring the kids over to see her Christmas lights. And that was it. And your mom wanted the kids to open their gifts over there.
Yes.
And I said to you, do you think that your kids may enjoy all the Christmas lights and all the decorations?
Right.
And you said, yeah, probably.
Yes. Yes.
And
yes.
I said, okay, so what if you just tell your mom with boundaries again?
Right.
Yes. I just wanted you to know. Thank you for inviting us. We will come. We only have an hour, but we will be there Sunday at 3 to 4. And when we went over it, like from fact and truth, you said, that actually feels pretty good.
Yes, yes. And I actually said to her, I recognize that it's important to you for us to come over and see your decorations and lights. And as I was texting that to her, I'm like, astonished that I'm able to say that and do that. And
that's right. We wanted to kind of validate your mom and let your mom know, hey, I hear you and I see you.
Yes.
Because remember, when we're in our adult, the way to help other people change is to model the adult for them. And that doesn't mean sitting them down and going, hey, you need to speak in fact and truth. But when I show up, like you're showing up, right?
Yes.
So when you show up from your adult it gives other people the opportunity to see what healthy looks like, and then they can start becoming healthy.
Yes.
Just because you're doing it.
Absolutely.
So that text was beautiful that you'd sent your mom. Well, it was beautiful.
Yes, she was thrilled, and I could see how meaningful it was.
And you took care of yourself by being there just for an hour.
Yes.
And the kids enjoyed everything, and they got their gifts, and they saw the decorations,
yes.
and so everybody was happy.
Yes, and to be able to get from the point I was when the event went down to this state, I think the key word or the key feeling through all of this that I've had to work through is resentment.
Yeah.
Because I sat in resentment for a long time and sat in kind of blaming and victim and all of that, and realized that's not moving me forward at all. Mm-hmm. And I remember, Michelle, you might have to correct me on this, but I said, or you said, you have to put out positive to get positive back, or if you put out negative, you're going to get negative back. And that has really resonated with me. It's so simple, but even when somebody does something to you that you find offensive or hurtful or seems attacking, it's just the biggest lesson for me has been to not react, just to not react. And because this event was so meaningful, it's taken some time for me to get to a place of not being resentful, but I feel like if we cannot have peace within, then you're going to stay stuck and everything's going to kind of come to a standstill. And so you're doing yourself and the world a favor because you're putting that kindness and energy back out to the world by just being able to lead with kindness. Leading with kindness when your mind wants to tell you absolutely no way, but if you can drop into your heart and think or feel, what would my heart say?
I the phrase I say is, what would love do?
Yes, what would love do?
Yeah, what would love do?
What would love do?
Or what would love say?
Yes, what would love say? And
because the only reason that people are not showing up from love is because they've got wounding.
Yes.
They've got dysfunctional upbringing. They've got whatever.
Fear.
But underneath all that covered up whatever is love.
Yes.
Underneath all of us.
Yes.
It's in there.
Yes, it's there.
And something that has really, I remember this word came up many times with you, with your mom, is acceptance.
Yes.
Accepting her for who she is, where she is on her life path, and understanding it's certainly not your job to change her.
Right.
Right? It's not your job to change her, but really understanding, okay, she is who she is. So when I meet with her and see her, I'm not going to expect her to be someone that she is not.
Absolutely.
Because she's not capable.
Yes. That's key, Michelle. That was key for me, for you to say she is not capable. It's not that she's on purpose.
No, she just doesn't know how to speak Russian.
Right. She's just simply not capable. And to be able to, even to this day, yesterday I had lunch with her, to be able to sit and talk to her and hear things that she says that would normally just fly all over me.
Yeah.
And just sit in a place of peace and standing in my truth.
Yes.
Standing in my truth and knowing that, and this applies to any person, but what someone else says and does is really none of my business. So what she says, I don't have to absorb those feelings, thoughts, and emotions and personalize and internalize.
Yeah.
So now when you hear it from that viewpoint,
it's easier to let things go.
It is. You can let it go.
Yes.
And so I've been able to get to a place of acceptance with my mom, which is huge, but also acceptance for life in general and my childhood.
Yeah.
And I think saying, you didn't have the childhood you dreamed of, or, just accept it. When you can accept and surrender, that's another level of peace.
It is.
That's so freeing.
So true. Then we're not sitting with resentment and blame. That keeps us stuck in the past. And that's one of the reasons I did that trauma. I just did the trauma. Oh, you like that one, the trauma podcast?
Yes, it's so good.
It's rewriting the story from the past. If you haven't heard that one, I did the trauma podcast recently on how do you look back when you have had issues in your past. And it might not even been big, giant traumas, right? It could just have been your childhood, my childhood, right? How do we change that previous story from the past or our past?
Right.
Listen to that trauma podcast. And then right after that, I did the trigger podcast. What do you do with triggers? So there you go.
Yes. And it all ties in.
It all ties in, doesn't it?
It's amazing.
Yeah.
It's amazing.
So, okay. So to end things then, so Susan, then what I'm hearing you say again, all these beautiful adult chair words and terms that we would use would be when you accept, you really have a much easier time of letting go. Yes. When we bond with our inner child, we have a much easier time with, what would you say? Like all of it, really. It's like, then, when I bond with my child, if we're an adult and we're bonding with our inner child, I'm not looking for someone outside of me to bond with me.
Yes.
And to correct me or to help me. I shouldn't say correct me, but to help me. I can do it myself.
Yes.
And that's when then the reparenting starts to happen. So many things happen from that. And busting our stories and assumptions, you guys. It's like when we can live more in fact and truth, we can let things go. So after Susan did all of these things and then some, she plopped herself down in my office and you said, I've had the biggest epiphany about life. Something flew out of your mouth that hit me like a lightning bolt. And you said,
soothing cannot be outsourced.
Yay and amen to that, sister.
Amen, right?
Yes, soothing cannot be outsourced. And that is so true when you look at somebody that has gone through an almost intervention because you started setting boundaries and taking care of yourself.
Right.
And going from, a mom that you feel like didn't pay a lot of attention to you, growing up, and then having somewhat of a relationship, but more of like an unconscious, I would call it an unconscious kind of relationship for many years, and then waking up to that and then learning all these beautiful things. It's like you realized it and now you're living it, which is so beautiful. And I see you come in now all the time and you're living by that. Now, of course, you're human. You have days where,
right,
but you're learning. It really is about going inside and working on yourself. And I say this all the time too. Use the phrase or the motto, quote unquote, it's all about me.
Yes.
And that's not being selfish. I've got to maintain the connection with me, knowing what am I feeling? What am I thinking? Am I blaming someone else? Am I, is my energy leaking all over somebody else? Am I being codependent with somebody else? What is going on with me? If I lose connection with me, I don't know what I'm doing. And I got to stay conscious. And we do that from the adult chair. So
yes, absolutely.
Wow. This has been great. Thank you, Susan.
Well, thank you, Michelle. Thoroughly enjoyed it.
I really, really, really appreciate you being on. And you mentioned, a lot of good things. And I just want to share with you guys, if you've not gone and listened to some of these meditations, I have created a lot of free guided meditations. And there's one called, what is it called, Susan? Accessing Your Inner Child, I think, which is if you've never connected with your inner child, go and do this particular meditation, because it will help you connect with your inner child, bond with that part of you, and start doing the work from that
and
part of it.
And you can even grab a picture of when you were for me, it's when I was 3.
Yeah.
And I look at her, and that actually is helpful.
Yeah, it is so helpful to look at the picture when you were a child.
Yes.
And the other meditation that I've done on the inner child is, I think I called it codependency and healing. It's an inner child meditation for codependency, negative programming, and limiting beliefs. So there you have it, you guys. I have the star on. Soothing is an inside job. She is the poster child of the adult chair. And Susan has a wonderful book recommendation. So in case you guys did not know, if you listen to the adult chair and you would like to try Audible, which is, you have Audible.
I do.
Is that what you just gave me the name of this book?
Yes,
From Audible,
yes,
right?
It's fantastic. I actually listen to it while I take baths in the evening. It's another
awesome.
self-care.
Yeah, I love that. That's beautiful.
Tip.
So Susan has recommended this great book based on her journey, and it's called Finding Your True Purpose in Life, The Power of the Heart. And it's by Baptiste de Pape. I think that's how you would say the name. And you can get that for free if you go to audibletrial.com/The Adult Chair. And you can get a free 30-day trial of Audible, and you can listen to this book right here.
It's amazing. It will teach you to lead with your heart, even if you have walls and barbed wire around your heart. You will be amazed at how this will transform your life on top of the adult chair.
I love it.
Yes.
It sounds like it would fit right into the adult chair model,
perfect.
actually.
Yes.
So thank you, Susan. So I am Michelle Chalfant, and my fantastic, lovely, most vulnerable client, Susan here. Thank you. And we will see you next time right here, seated firmly in your adult chair.